Good morning. Happy Sabbath. Shall we stand and sing our prelude, 681, 694, the doxology. This is the day the Lord hath made. He calls the hours his own. Let heaven rejoice, let earth be glad, and praise around his throne. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Please be seated.
Good morning, everybody. You know what's great about coming to church? You see all your friends. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm excited about coming to church every week. And I know that some of you sometimes had to drive a long ways to come to church, so it's great to see you here. In fact, you know, there's people here as visitors, and maybe it's a good opportunity for you to just turn around there and say hi to your friend, to your neighbors, and to your visitors here.
Good to see you. Service starts at 11. Yeah, it's gonna be worse yet next week.
Yeah.
Hardly anybody will be here.
I just want to say I'm thankful that you're all here today. I have a couple of things I want to bring up. One of them is that we have a membership transfer, and it's the second reading for the transfer of Heather and Madeline and Maxwell. Did I say that right? Madeline and Maxwell Stone from Colorado Springs to Santa Cruz Church. And it's so nice to have them here. And all in favor for this to happen? I'm glad you raised your hand. There's no opposed, I hope. Message is carried. The other thing is that we have a health seminar happening December the 1st at 7 p.m. at the community center. How many people want to have this program here? I think it's an awesome idea, isn't it? Get involved if you possibly can, because you know what? All of us are connected with this whole thing. So I would like to encourage you to be involved, if possible, with the health clinic that's going to be happening here. Well, we know it's happening this week. You know, we have Thanksgiving coming up in just a few days. How many of you are thankful for what you have? Aren't you thankful? Haven't you been blessed this year? I mean, think of all the blessings you have in your life. Being thankful is one of the greatest things. And we're blessed to be a member of this church. And so I'm thankful for that today. That's all I had right now. And I wanted to say that our offering today is for the local church budget. How many are thankful we have lights today? Have you ever been in a church that doesn't have electricity? I was on a mission trip, and we had one day rain coming down, no electricity, and it was totally dark, and the preacher was having to preach in the dark. Aren't you thankful you have a church where you actually can see people? Isn't that nice? So anyway, our offering today is for our local church budget. So will the deacons please come forward for that? Dear Jesus, thank you for the blessings you give us every day. Thank you for the offering we have today for our local church budget. May this be a means for our church to grow and keep it healthy. For Jesus' sake, amen.
Shall we stand and sing our praise song, hymn number 73, Holy, Holy, Holy.
Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, early in the morning our song shall rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity. Holy, 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 angels adore thee, casting down their bright crowns around the glassy sea. Thousands and 10,000s worship low before thee, which word and art and evermore shall be. Almighty. All thy works shall praise, thine in earth and sky and sea. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity. Please be seated.
It's awesome to be up front here with two awesome singers. I mean, I can't believe it. Ron and Lisa are awesome singers, and I think to myself, someday I want to be able to sing like them. Anyway, I just want to say that I don't know about you, but I have children and grandchildren, and I think the most important thing you have in your life is to have your children be involved with God, and being involved in the church school is one of the greatest blessings we can give our children. So our offering today is for our lamb's offering is for our children's being able to go to our schools. So will the children be comes forward for the lamb's offering? And later on, Stan Shepherd is going to give our children's story.
I'm talking. Oh, it is on now. All right. Good morning. I'm glad Mr. Arnold joined you kids so that we have 5 kids up there now. Nice. Good. So today I'm going to talk about some weird and unexpected stories. And I thought about asking some of you if you had any weird or unexpected stories, but I was afraid of what you might say, so I decided I'm not going to do that. Okay, first a weird story. You ready? There was a guy, and he fell asleep for 19 years. Yeah, it's called being in a coma. So imagine you girls falling asleep, and boy, and not waking up until the year 2034. Some of you might be like 25 years old, somewhere in there, 26, 27, something. That's pretty old. So when he fell asleep, there were no cell phones, no smartphones, no Facebook. That's kind of nice, isn't it? But we can't go back. We can only go forward, so that doesn't help. All right, unexpected story. There's some swimmers out in the ocean, and they were being surrounded by dolphins. And that's kind of unexpected. And then they thought, are these dolphins trying to attack us? But then they saw shark fins and realized that they were actually making a barrier around these swimmers. And they were out there for 40 minutes, and these dolphins just stayed and fought off the sharks. Isn't that cool? That's unexpected. All right, weird story. There was a shipping clerk from New York, and he wanted to visit his parents in Texas. So he made a box, and he shipped himself. They put this box on a truck and put it on a plane and a delivery van. And do you know what happened when he got to his parents' house? He got arrested because you can't ship yourself. So don't try that one, okay? All right. Go back to unexpected story. So imagine a big sea, almost like an ocean. And all of a sudden, part of the water goes this way, and then part of the water goes that way, and then the people could walk right across on dry land. Now that's unexpected, right? That's what happened when the children of Israel left Egypt. And then, how about weird? How about a preacher getting swallowed by a big fish and then getting spit up where he was supposed to go? Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's Jonah. Yeah, and how about unexpected? How about, or at least unexpected for some, but not all. So imagine this black cloud off in the distant sky, and it starts getting closer and closer. And as it gets closer, it gets lighter and lighter, and then pretty soon it's this big white cloud, and every eye in the whole world can see that cloud, and up in that cloud is Jesus and all of his angels. That'd be pretty unexpected for some, but are you girls expecting that one? I bet some here are expecting that. And the cool part is, just by loving Jesus like he loves you, you guys can go up to heaven when that cloud comes. Isn't that cool? All right, so as you go back to your seats, think about some weird and unexpected stories, and remember that God loves you.
Shall we kneel as we seek the Lord in prayer? Commune with me. Commune with me. Between the wings of the cherubim, commune with me. I'll meet you there.
thankful that you're here with us today. We're thankful that you love us. We're thankful that you care about each one of us, not only in this church, but throughout the whole world. Not only this church, but believers, whatever belief they may be, Lord, you love them too. The whole world is yours. Help us to realize that we are your children, and we need to help the people around us that do not know anything about you. There's so many people out there that never heard of you or haven't experienced you in their lives. Help us to reach those people. Help us to be involved with them in any way we can be. We think of the people right here locally that are going to be experiencing you through these evangelistic series. May they be involved, not evangelistic, the health seminar series. Help them that they may find you through that experience. Also, Jesus, we're asking that you be with our members that are discouraged, some that are not here because maybe their health is not good, some that are discouraged because maybe they're finding things wrong with the church. Whatever the reason, Lord, I ask that you be with them. Help them that they may come to find you through the experience of their life. Be with today with our speaker, that she may give us a message that we need to hear. May we be in tune to your word and find something in there that will help us to grow spiritually and to reach the people around us. I ask that you be with also the people that have gone through this horrible ordeal in Paris. There's so many things that are happening around the world today. We think about those people and how they're suffering right now. I ask that you be with them. Lord, there's so much heartache in the world, and only you can cure the problem if people would just turn to you. For Jesus' sake, amen.
It's so beautiful to pray to God, and we learn so much by listening back to how he answers our prayers and what he tells us through the word. God also speaks to us through those that worship with us and those around us. He speaks to us through the rocks and through donkeys, and even in our dreams. God has a special message for us, and this is a song that helps reflect one of those messages. I dreamed last night I got on the boat to heaven, and by some chance I had brought my gold along. And as I stood and I beckoned people worship, but the passengers, they know right from wrong. And the people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat. The people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under by the sharp lapel on your checkered coat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Well, they were very nice to me, so I sailed away on that little boat to heaven. And by some chance, with a gavel in my fist, I found myself standing there in righteous judgment. But the passengers were bound to resist. And the people all said, beware, you're on a heavenly trip. The people all said, beware, you'll scuttle the ship. And the devil will drag you under by that fancy tie round your wicked throat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Well, as I laughed at those passengers to heaven. A great big wave came and washed me overboard. And as I sank and I hollered, "Someone save me," at that moment I woke up. Praise the Lord. Whew. And I said to myself, "Sit down. You're rocking the boat, Lisa." I said to myself, "Sit down. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under with a soul so heavy you'll never float. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Lay down your pride and judgment. Decide your pride and judgment must sit down." Yes.
If you open your Bibles to Psalms 8, verses 4 and 6 through 6. I'm reading from the King James Version. "What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you visited him? For you have made him a little lower than the angels, and you have crowned him with glory and honor. You have made him to have dominion over the works of thy hand. You have put all things under his feet."
Good morning. And this is the week of Thanksgiving. But even though Thanksgiving is coming up in a few days, isn't it wonderful to be thankful every day? And aren't we thankful that we can be thankful and that we have lots to be thankful for? So before I begin, I'll start with a little prayer that, of course, I have to sing, but it comes right out of Matthew 6:9, verses 9 through 13. It'll be in Spanish for our Hispanic friends, but we all have the translation in our Bible. And maybe we could have a little more monitor over here, or should I adjust it? Padre nuestro, que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre, santificado sea tu nombre, vénganos tu reino y hágase tu voluntad, así en la tierra como en el cielo. Danos hoy el pan nuestro de cada día y perdónanos nuestras ofensas, como también nosotros perdonamos a los que nos ofenden. Padre nuestro, que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre, santificado sea tu nombre. tuyo es el reino y el poder, la gloria por siempre, Señor. Tuyo es el reino por siempre. So as you know, in the Lord's Prayer, one of our big petitions is that may it be on earth as it is in heaven, and may thy will be done. And one of God's biggest wills for us is to experience the talents that he's given to us in us as his treasures. Now, we are all familiar with the 10 Commandments that came out of Exodus and Moses' experience in the wilderness. But I'm just wondering if we could review briefly the Janaical commandments. Does anybody know about the Janaical commandments? Anyone? Raise your hand. No one? Well, I'm not surprised because I made it up. The first Janaical commandment, and you all know about this, is in Genesis chapter 1. God created man, and what was his first commandment? That came right out of Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. Anybody that has a Bible might be able to tell me. Does anyone have a Bible? Of course you do. What was God's first commandment? Be fruitful and multiply. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, can you imagine? He created us to be fruitful and multiply. Isn't that amazing? And in that very same verse, he gave us the second Janaical commandment, which is basically to take care of everything that I gave you and to rule over, the birds of the air and the beasts of the field, and take care of what I've given you, take care of each other, to rule over the work of God's hands. So those are the first two commandments, which is really amazing because when God gave us those talents, we all have different talents. None of us are created the same, and as you all know, even the snowflakes are completely different from each other. And every single one of us is completely different than the person next to them. And as David says in Psalm 8, verses 4 through 6, what is man that God dost take thought of him? And the Son of Man, which would be Jesus, that thou dost care for him, and that Jesus cares for us. He's our source of salvation. God has made man a little bit lower than God and has crowned him with glory and majesty. Now, God sits on the throne, but as he's created us, and according to David in the Psalms, he has crowned us with glory and majesty. And he has given us the ability to rule over the work of his hands. So in Psalm 139, God created us as a perfect being, not that we are more perfect than God, but we are perfect for who we are and as God made us. And he knew of us in our creation way back before there was even the first day. In Psalm 139 it says, thine eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in thy book they were all written, the days that were ordained for me, when as yet there was not even one day. God already ordained our divine plan for ourselves. And then in Jeremiah 1:5, he says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. So he has actually given us a tremendous amount of responsibility, but he's also given us the equipment to do that as we stay in touch with him and as the Holy Spirit works in us. So, would anyone like to guess what the third Genaical commandment was? I'll give you a hint. It's in Genesis 2:17. This is one of the most amazing points. And would anyone like to offer that to the rest of the group? Genesis 2:17. God tells us, yes. Yes. That sounds like a commandment to me, doesn't it? It's not one of the 10 commandments, but what's really interesting is that through that fruit and eating of the knowledge of good and evil, we end up with a bit of a dichotomy. We have the good and we have the evil. Now, Satan loves this because God created us as perfect beings. But when we get into this area of judgment between good and evil, all of a sudden we have a basis for comparison, which we know is not healthy. We have a basis for complaining, if we choose to. And ideally, it actually leads to a whole host of issues associated with judgment. And we know that Jesus is our judge. We are truly not to judge each other. And many times we get into trouble by even judging ourselves, which is what happened to Cain. Cain made an offering to God, and Abel made an offering to God. And although Cain made the incorrect offering, he could have repented and said he was sorry, but no, he was in self-condemnation, and his countenance fell. And then God gave the fourth Genaical commandment, which is written in Genesis 4, verse 7. Anyone else like to read that for us this morning? It's an interesting thing because through judgment and out of judgment, we begin the whole process of discontent, comparison, sin, procrastination, all kinds of difficulties that stem from the whole process of judgment. And so, what is that fourth commandment? What was that? Okay, so basically, as a result of making these evaluations, we begin to feel guilty and in a difficulty, and the whole idea of judgment sets in with all its friends and family, and this perfect being that God created before eating from the knowledge of good and evil, this perfect being all of a sudden becomes a harvest field for sin. So out of that is where sin comes from, because we've done this activity, and then all sorts of unfortunate behaviors come out of that. And so the fourth Genaical commandment is, you must master it. Sin will be there, and since man has eaten from that tree, sin is there. And the whole story unfolds from there, okay? So we have sin on board, And then when we get into Exodus, and we're all familiar with those 10 commandments, it's those last 5 commandments that God has given us to guard ourselves against, such as do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not lie, and do not covet. And all of those come out of this concept of judgment, which started with the knowledge of good and evil. So when we're looking at a remedy for this sin, of course we have Jesus. And for those of us that know Jesus as our salvation, he is our connection to God. But in the meantime, when Moses was issued those 10 commandments, no one really recognized Jesus as the man because he was born in the New Testament. But in the Old Testament, God's remedy for those last 5 difficulties that we struggle with as a result of sin, God asked us, commanded us to focus on God first. Because when we focus on God, we don't see the flaws, ideally. We don't judge, we don't compare. We recognize God as being the perfect being that he is. And then, of course, no other idols, because no one can surpass God in his power, his omnipotence, his omnipresence, and so forth. And we want to, of course, rest on with the 4th commandment. That's what allows the truth of God to truly sink in. In the whole learning process, we have so many things that we're bombarded with. But to truly support that process and integrate it into our being, we need to be in a truly quiet place and allow that truth to settle into our subconscious thoughts. Our conscious thoughts are constantly bringing up doubts, fears, comparisons, and all those other things that are associated with judgment. So, and then of course, the 5th commandment is to honor your mother and your father. Not that you would say that your mother and father are good or bad or this, that, or the other, but we honor them because that's where we came from. That's who raised us, and that's who brought us into the world physically. So that pretty much summarizes the commandments, and God spelled them out very clearly as Moses reports them in Exodus. Now, what's interesting about judgment, and I love this, I'm a huge fan of national parks and nature, and I know a lot of you also enjoy nature. The beauty of nature, when you go out there and you see the trees and the water and the rocks, they are completely content in their position on the earth. And when I go out to nature, I never feel judged. I go out there, and nature just accepts me the way I am. It has no judgment. And you also see the trees delighting in the fact that they're a tree. A tree does not want to be a bush. A tree doesn't want to be anything other than what God made it to be. And so a tree is out there treeing, and the water is out there watering, and the rock is out there rocking, okay? And a lot of times, rocks fall in love, and then they're next to each other. Isn't that cute? They stay there, and they are just themselves, which is exactly how God made us, to be ourselves. But unlike these natural phenomena that God has made, they do not judge, but they do not connect to God in a way that we can, because we can pray to him, and God speaks to us through the Holy Spirit. And when we do accept Jesus and gain the benefit of the Holy Spirit, all of a sudden we have the most amazing ability to create. We create and reformulate ideas. This is how we make discoveries, and we develop things such as even the sundial or the basic tools that we use, the pulley and the plane and today's modern, technology of computers and cell phones and even Facebook. These are all creative ideas that have been put together by man because we are creative beings and we can create things. And hopefully we will use that creativity to the glory of God. As Matthew states in 5:16, that what we do must shine and glorify God. So we have a lot of powers, but and abilities, but we also must use them in the right way. So as we continue in our journey throughout life, God gives us amazing opportunities to grow. And one of the most powerful ways for our own growth, and unfortunately, probably the most difficult way, is in the experience of pain. Many times we develop habits that are difficult to change unless there is a traumatic and dramatic change and occurrence associated with pain. Now, when we try new things, often there is fear associated with it. And that fear prevents us from perhaps trying new things or doing new things or setting new goals and growing in many ways. So we can either be proactive and set goals for ourselves. We're about to experience a new year. A lot of times people set new goals in the new year. From now on, I'm going to do this, or I want to achieve that. And then what happens to those goals? Somehow they fall by the wayside. If we stay true to those goals through the Holy Spirit and maintain our faith, we often come up against obstacles. And those obstacles that we do overcome help us to grow. And this is where the talents come into the picture, because God has given us all our own unique talents. And those talents need to be exploited, explored, and experienced, because those talents that we use and develop are not only our source of growth, but it's also our source of serving each other. So an interesting word that has always fascinated me is the word of confidence. Confidence is derived from two Greek words, con meaning with, and fidens comes from fed, which is the Greek word for faith. So when we go forward in confidence with faith, Jesus is that source of confidence because we have that faith. And that faith is developed over time as we continue to dip into new territory and try things that are unfamiliar. One of the best things we can do, actually, and I've often said this, is as long as we're in Jesus and as long as we are living in the faith, be not afraid, as it says in the Bible. Be not afraid to make mistakes, because that's how we learn things. Be not afraid of new things and new adventures, because there is a truth there that allows us to learn and thereby grow and to gain understanding. As a child, I loved to play. One of my favorite songs came from Peter Pan, which is, I won't grow up. I don't want to grow up, because I'm still growing, actually. As a matter of fact, I'm experiencing my postmenopausal adolescence at this moment. And growth is truly an adventurous experience. Can be scary. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to point out how valuable it is for us to use those talents that God gave us. But what are those talents? How do we know if we are living in our talents and using our talents? Well, here is a really quick, playful reminder. Has anyone ever ridden on a feeder fodder? A a feeder fodder. It's not a teeter-totter, it's a feeder fodder, okay? So on the one hand, we feed ourselves with fulfillment, we feed ourselves with fruitfulness, we feed ourselves with fullness in our tank of energy and joy, and we feed ourselves with faith. Those are the areas that bring us the most joy. Our fulfillment, our fruitfulness, our faith, and our fullness of joy and energy. On the other hand, if we're foddering around, you know what fodder is? It's a lot of food that it can be eaten, but there's no nutrition there. So if we spend our time in the fodder, we are tired, frustrated, fearful, and another F word that I won't say. No, that's not it. It's, we feel failure, and that's not the best way to live. So when we're truly living in our talents and we're living in our joy, we have lots of energy. We're excited about the next day. We jump out of bed. We have something important to contribute. We're about to enter into the Advent and Christmas season, which I believe should be there the whole year. And one of the exciting things about Christmas is that we can give something to someone and we can show appreciation to them. But when we give our gifts and we give our talents, that's one of the most valuable things we can do that helps us jump out of bed. Those are the talents that, according to Christ Object Lessons, says our time is actually belonging to God. God put us here, and that time that we are here belongs to God. And every moment is His. We are under the most solemn obligation to improve it to His glory. And of no talent He has given will He require a more strict account of our time. So when we are spending our time, we must keep into consideration the value that we're bringing to each other, the growth that we're achieving, and the way we're glorifying God and doing what He would want us to do in His will as we pray in the Lord's Prayer. Now in Romans 9:20, 21, God made us specifically different. This is the story about the potter and the clay. As God is forming us and has created us to do specific things in His life for us that He's given us, He has created us to do certain specific things because we are the clay and He is the potter. And yet He made us different. He still directs us in a different way. And this is why it's so unhelpful to compare. Well, so-and-so can sew, and so-and-so can work the computer, and so-and-so can write music, and somebody else can do gardening and all that. We mustn't complain because we all have our individual gifts. I know you already heard this many times, but it's so important to keep that in mind as we avoid the whole judgment process. By the way, getting back to judgment, I have a godmother that lives in Santa Barbara at a retirement home, and she's 86 come December. And when I go to visit her, there's a lot of octogenarians and nonagenarians and even people over 100 years old. And I always like to ask them, what do they think is their secret to living so long? And it usually always comes around to, I had a great childhood, I have a great attitude, and I just love life. So that has, a very valuable component to it. So along with that, I've also asked them and mentioned to them the whole concept of the Janaical commandments and asked them about judgment. And they would say, well, it's really hard to look at a situation and not judge. Is that possible? Is it possible to look at a situation, a condition, or a person and not judge them for I wonder where they live, I wonder where they got that watch, I wonder where those shoes came from or where they've gone. Is it possible to really observe life and just appreciate it for what God has given us? Anyway, I'd like to report this little story that helps us to solidify the idea of how important it is not to compare. And it comes out of a book written by Paul Copeland called When God Goes to Starbucks. And it's this story that I'm sure you'll catch on once I read it. So a man is walking along a high bridge over a river when he saw a woman about to jump off. He ran up to her, trying to dissuade her from committing suicide. He told her simply that God loved her. A tear came to her eye. Then he asked her, "Are you a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, or what?" "I'm a Christian," she replied. He said, "Me too, small world, Protestant or Catholic?" "Protestant." "Me too. What denomination?" "Baptist." "Me too. Northern Baptist or Southern Baptist?" "Northern Baptist." He remarked, "Well, me too." "Northern Conservative Baptist or Northern Liberal Baptist?" She answered, "Northern Conservative Baptist." He said, "Well, that's amazing." "That is amazing. Northern Conservative Baptist Fundamentalist Baptist or Northern Conservative Reformed Baptist?" "Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist." "Remarkable. Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist, Great Lakes region or Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist, Eastern region?" She told him, "Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist, Great Lakes region." "A miracle. I can't believe this is a miracle," he cried. "Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist, Great Lakes region, Council 1879, or Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist, Great Lakes Region Council of 1912. And she said, 1912. And then he said, "Die, heretic!" and pushed her over the bridge. That's just how judgmentalism can be a problem. Unfortunately, it separated them, even though they had all those other things in common. Now, we can rejoice in our labors, and God tells us in Ecclesiastes 5:19-20 that a man's labor is his gift because he's using his talents, of course. How many people would go to work and do their job whether they got paid or not? I know Wanda would. Wanda definitely would, for sure. But how many of us other people would go to work and do what they do even if they didn't get paid? They must be living in their feeder as opposed to their fodder, all right? And then Philippians 2:13 says, "God is at work in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure." And, of course, that helps give us the confidence of faith to do what God intended us to do, and the courage and the energy to do all those wonderful things God wants us to do. So, in 1 Peter 4:10, "As each one has received a special gift, employ it in serving one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God." We know that, of course. And then in 1 Corinthians 12:6, we have varieties of different talents. We have differences in our perspective. We have differences in our talents, but we have one God, one God. And each man has his own gifts from God, and one in this manner and another in that. But we have one mind in Christ. We are united by that one mind as Christians. Ecclesiastes 10:10 is interesting. "If the axe is dull and he does not sharpen its edge, then he must exert more strength." So we have a talent and we have a desire. We have a desire, we have a determination, we have a dedication. And even though we pray, if we don't exercise discipline, we will not be able to sharpen and develop our talents. Our talents cannot just sit there and express themselves. We have to implement them and develop them and fine-tune them so that they can truly serve others the way God intended it. So therefore, it's not enough to just sit there and say, well, God gave me talents and enough is enough. The second thing is what I was reviewing were the spiritual gifts. You know, God has given us these gifts of talents. It's really important, if we're going to live on the feeder side, to also love what we do, as I just reviewed. And then we have to take into consideration our abilities. Certainly, some people love baseball. They love certain, musical performances, but they may not really have the abilities to do that. So that needs to be taken into consideration. Even though there's a desire there, we may not have been built to do that. And then in Proverbs 16:3, Solomon tells us that we're to commit our works to the Lord and plans will be established. We're familiar with that one. And then Proverbs 16:9, the mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. This is a very interesting concept out of Proverbs, and I've seen it happen in other people's lives and in my own in a very small way. But when we focus on what we truly, really want, taking into consideration our abilities and our desires and our enjoyment and the discipline and so forth, and we move forward towards that special goal and dream life that we're seeking, or dream object, or things that we're intending to have, the desire that we have, God often provides that for us through a path that we may never have expected. For instance, this one friend I'm wanting to relate to you had a beautiful picture of a home that was like 2 stories high. It almost looked like a little castle, and it was near a body of water in a very serene, quiet, wooded place. And it was in her living room for many, many, many years. And then she married a person that allowed her to move to a different location. And when she married that person, where do you think they ended up living? They lived in this 2-story home right near the water with all the flowers and the trees. So interestingly enough, the Lord directed her steps towards that goal that was hidden in her heart because she loved it. And of course, we have to take into consideration when we're using our talents what our personality type is. Are we introverted? Are we extroverted? Our personality is pretty much established from birth, but our character can change. And those are the areas that we can certainly grow. And then, of course, there are the experiences, as is described in Deuteronomy 11:2, and it's how God disciplines us in the growth process. And oftentimes it's associated with pain, because we often need to change, and unless we quit drinking, we end up with a terrible disease, or unless we quit a certain difficult behavior, we suffer the consequences of that behavior, and that may motivate us to change. On the other hand, if we're attempting to achieve a goal, as long as we keep our eye on the goal, we may end up going through certain painful experiences, but because our eyes are on the goal, as Paul mentions, we can attain that crown of glory because we maintain the discipline that it takes to achieve that goal. And that discipline comes to fruition. So as you know, time belongs to God, and yet all of our work that we do must ideally be carried out as unto the Lord, as it says in Colossians 3:23. And then in Romans 6:13, we need to live as instruments of righteousness to God. And the way we honor God in serving each other, loving Him, not judging, is to use our talents to the benefit and stewardship of each other and God's creation. So with that, I wanted to sing our closing hymn. And for those of you who may have been here during the time that we sang the first day, anybody here remember the first day from Psalms 19:1, the heavens are telling? Well, the heavens are telling came out of day 1, and this is day 6, the day of man, that God created on the 6th day. And to complete the circle, the heavens were telling of God's creation, and at the end, the heavens are going to be telling of God's creation. So for those of you who would like to stand up and sing that with me, I will give you the signal. It's the same words we had for the first day, which is from Psalm 19:1, the heavens are telling the glory of God, and their expanse declares the work of his hands. If you have a Pew Bible, you can pull up Psalm 19:1. Now, leading up to that song, Ken, I'm ready. Leading up to that song, we have about 7.5 minutes of music to help you prepare. If you want to follow along, it's Genesis chapter 1, verse 24. What is man that God does take thought of him? And the Son of Man that God does care for him? He has seen and does crown him with glory and majesty. He has made man to rule over the work of his hands, and has put all things under the foot of man.
What is that God does crown him with glory and majesty?
Leonard,
Crown him with glory and majesty.
I need more space up here. Then God said,
Let the earth bring forth living creatures, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth.
After their kind.
and it was so, and God made the beasts of the earth,
After their kind.
and the cattle,
After their kind.
and everything that creeps on the ground. And God saw that it was good.
This man that God does crown him with glory and majesty. Crown him with glory and majesty.
Then God said,
Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. And let him rule over the fish of the sea, birds of the sky, cattle and earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the ground.
And God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them.
fruitful and multiply, and fill all the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.
His man that God does crown him with glory and majesty, crown him with glory and majesty.
Then God said,
Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth. Every tree with fruit that has seed, it shall be food for you. And to every beast of the earth, bird of the sky, everything that moves on the earth that has life, I have given every green plant for food.
and it was so. And God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, there was morn, the sixth day. What is man that God took from the Just care for him.
He has made man a little lower than God, and does crown him with glory and majesty. He has made man to rule over the work of his hands,
And has put all things under his feet. The heavens are telling the glory of God. The heavens are telling of his glory, and God created man in his own image to rule over the work of his hands, to rule over the work of his hands. So God did a lot of work on the sixth day, and we're still living from the benefits of that day. And he is asking us to use his talents in his treasures. We are his treasures. And Heavenly Father, I just pray that you have pricked our hearts today to look inside and evaluate how we are truly using our time to your glory, and how we are holding ourselves accountable to the treasures that you have given each one of us, day by day, to use those treasures in building your kingdom, in glorifying you, and staying in so very close connection and relationship to you through Christ. We just thank you for this beautiful week of Thanksgiving. May we wake up each day completely thankful, and thankful that we're thankful because you have created us in your image.